Look, I can't protect you. With this collar on, my superpower is just unbridled cancer. Me a bow and arrow, I'm basically Hawkeye.
Hey guys, I'm Andrew here with another episode of Random Comic Reviews. In today's episode, we'll be reviewing Hawkeye vs. Deadpool issue number 1. We did an old DC comic last time, so I thought we'd change things up this time and review a modern Marvel comic. So without further ado, let's dive into this comic review.
Should be amusing.
The comic starts in a courtroom with Typhoid Mary awaiting her trial. But much to the courtroom's surprise, she gets off scot-free immediately, as the judge is mind-controlled by Black Cat? I always thought she was more of an elaborate thief who works alone. Didn't realize she was the type to run a criminal empire. Shows how much I've been following modern Marvel comics. I've always been more of a DC guy, and when I do read Marvel comics, they're typically from back in the day.
That doesn't seem fair.
So Felicia has been mind-controlling cops and judges throughout New York City, but she considers them to be small fry and wants to go for bigger fish, like the FBI, NSA, and SHIELD agents. However, she'll have to tie up some loose ends if she wants to achieve her goals, as Hawkeye and Deadpool are hot on her tail and will need to be dealt with. So we then cut to Hawkeye and Deadpool sitting in Hawkeye's apartment post-fight. Kate Bishop comes in to check on Clint and is understandably startled by Deadpool's appearance. Clint and Wade reflect on how much their Halloween night has sucked, so Kate tells Wade his Freddy Krueger makeup is the best she has ever seen in an attempt to try and cheer him up, not realizing that it is Deadpool's actual face, which makes Kate freak out and Wade regret not dressing up as Freddy Krueger for Halloween.
Watch this.
Hawkeye and Deadpool follow their lead to the coroner's, and Clint insists that he does the talking when they get there, to which Deadpool replies, "You got it, you're the Avenger."
You are an Avenger.
The coroner tells them he doesn't care if they are an Avenger, X-Men, or even a member of the Fantastic Four. They are not getting in tonight, and that's final. So Deadpool takes the opportunity to do things his way, which Clint unwittingly agrees to. Clint aptly asserts that Deadpool is a lunatic as they make their way into the morgue. They find what they came for, and Deadpool can't help but mess with the coroner some more on their way out. Hawkeye and Deadpool's lead from the morgue leads them to a building full of mind-controlled citizens dressed up as superheroes. The two heroes do their best to do minimal damage as they fight their way through a crowd of costume-wearing mind-controlled civilians. At one point during the fight, Clint is tossed through some drywall by the mind-controlled guy in the Daredevil costume, and on the other side of that wall is Black Cat. She points a gun at him and demands that he hand over the information she's after. However, before that confrontation can meaningfully progress, Clint is yanked out of the way by the mind-controlled guy in the Daredevil suit once more, and is slammed into yet another wall. Deadpool decides he's had enough and ends the fight by setting off the sprinkler and then electrocuting the floor. He knocks out everyone else in the room, including Clint. Then, in typical Deadpool fashion, decides to knock himself out as well for the lulz.
Rich Corinthian leather.
While Deadpool and Hawkeye are taking a lightning-induced nap, Kate Bishop has been following a lead of her own, in a letter to Scott Adsit, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I'm Agent Phil Coulson with the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division.
That's quite a mouthful.
I know. We're working on it.
Clint is frustrated as Black Cat got away, which means the case is still ongoing, which means he has to keep working with Deadpool, which is really the most agonizing part of this whole ordeal for Clint. After a few hours of talking to the police, the two temporarily go their separate ways. The comic ends with a mysterious silhouetted woman asking for help from Clint.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
I thought Hawkeye vs. Deadpool issue number 1 was an entertaining enough read with a couple of pretty funny jokes from and at the expense of Deadpool. Hawkeye works well as a straight man, and Kate Bishop has a couple humorous moments of her own, but the character who really steals the show is Deadpool. Hardly surprising, however, as that is to be expected in any story featuring Deadpool, as the merc of a mouth loves to be the center of attention. The plot is a pretty by-the-numbers mind-control plotline, which is one of the oldest and most common storylines within the superhero genre. It tries to spice things up a little bit by having the mind-control citizens dress up as the Marvel superheroes we all know and love, which makes for some funny visual gags like Clint punching someone dressed like Hawkeye. Black Cat being the supposed mastermind behind the plot does intrigue me and would be the most likely cause of me potentially continuing this storyline. While I found the comic to be decently enjoyable, I wouldn't necessarily recommend you go out and buy it. While certainly good enough to get around to reading if you already own it, There's better comics out there, and I would suggest reading those first over this one. Especially if you read comics for the artwork, because I found the illustrating and coloring in this comic boring and cheap looking. Not that I could do any better myself, of course. My drawing skills cap at stick figures. Ending my assessment on a tangent seems fitting for a review of a Deadpool comic.
Shit. Did I leave the stove on?